Well, Donald Trump finds himself tonight in agreement with William Shakespeare. Donald Trump doesn't know that, of course, because Donald Trump is the most ignorant, least educated man in the history of the American presidency, including all of those presidents who didn't go to college and were self-educated. Every American president except Donald Trump knew or knows the famous Shakespeare line from Henry VI. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. In that play, Shakespeare was actually making the point that a cruel ruler cannot afford to have lawyers getting in his way. Shakespeare very much wanted his audience on the side of the lawyers. Tonight, Donald Trump is on the side of Dick the Butcher, the character in Henry VI who says, let's kill all the lawyers. Donald Trump is giving up on the lawyers who helped him get hit with an $83.3 million verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case last week. He announced on his social media today, I am in the process, along with my team, of interviewing various law firms to represent me in an appeal. Guess who is not interviewing various law firms for the appeal of the E. Jean Carroll case? E. Jean Carroll. E. Jean Carroll has the best lawyers Donald Trump has ever seen in a courtroom, Roberta Kaplan and Sean Crowley. Donald Trump finished his social media advertisement for lawyers today with a last line calling the lawyer he hasn't even hired yet crazy. He said, any lawyer who takes a Trump case is either crazy or a true American patriot. Respectable law firms who care about their reputations have been turning down Donald Trump as a client for many years, long before he was a politician. That's why Donald Trump has the most incompetent and unprofessional lawyers who have ever represented a president of the United States. Donald Trump could have made that last line of his social media post a bit more accurate by saying any lawyer who takes a Trump case is either crazy or needs the money or both. Donald Trump has spent more money on lawyers than any politician in history. None of that money is Donald Trump's money. The New York Times is reporting that Donald Trump has spent $50 million on lawyers just in the year 2023, with all of that money coming from the poor people who answer Donald Trump's electronic solicitations for money. These are the same people who Donald Trump told when he first became a presidential candidate he would never ask for money because he is so rich.
I don't need anybody's money. It's nice. I don't need anybody's money. I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care. I'm really rich.
Not rich enough. People who believed Donald Trump when he said that quickly became contributors as soon as he started asking for money, weeks after that. $50 million is just for lawyers for the year 2023. Donald Trump had massive legal expenses in 2022 and in 2021. And those legal expenses are only going to get bigger in 2024 now that his teams of lawyers are in preparation to defend criminal defendant Donald Trump in 4 separate trials in New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and southern Florida. There was a top secret hearing in the Florida case today to consider how to use classified information in that trial about Donald Trump's criminal possession of classified documents and violations of the Espionage Act after he left the White House. Donald Trump's lawyers were not allowed into this hearing. The hearing took place not in a courtroom, but in a SCIF, a secure location for examining and discussing classified documents. Donald Trump's favorite judge, who he appointed to the federal court, Aileen Mercedes Cannon, presided in the hearing, with only the Justice Department lawyers for the prosecution allowed in that SCIF today for today's hearing. After the hearing, Judge Cannon filed a short note in the case file about the hearing saying total time in court 3 hours, attorney appearances Jay Bratt, David Harback, Julie Edelstein, J.P. Cooney.